going to start off. I'm Kelly Albrecht, and we're going to start off with us, an Agile practitioner. I'm not sure if you have other things, certified Scrum Master, Agile coach, maybe. He's going to read us the Agile manifesto, dramatically.
I'm working on, still working on the drama.
Okay.
So, I didn't bring my stylus because they.
You have a question?
I can have it.
Sorry. Oh.
You get the
It's not for me.
go ahead and get the little spot for you there.
Oh, neat.
We're short on time, but
How are you doing? Good. Very good. I'm Eric Houston. Again, I'm a member of the Agile New England. We meet in Boston monthly. I believe anybody from the Boston area? Okay. Any of you that are completely new to Agile know nothing? Anybody that? Excellent. Okay, so I'd like to give you a little bit of an overview about what Agile is, because it's a big question what Agile is, and in fact, it's subject to a lot of dispute and misinterpretation and downright ignorance. So a lot of people think they're doing Agile and really don't have a clue. And actually, I'm kind of from the far left, if I may say, insofar as I'm in cultural aspects, linguistic aspects of Agile. Some of my cohort at the Agile New England. So I'd like to digress a little bit about that, but the question is, what is Agile? So first of all, I'd like to encourage all of you who don't know or already know about the Agile Manifesto or the website. It's always there, 24/7, agilemanifesto.org. You can use your favorite search engine. We all know the one beginning with G, Agile Manifesto, and it's 4 lines. So when people ask what is Agile, and I think it's always important, no matter what your field of endeavor is, to beg the question of what is it that we're engaged in, what is the definition? And so, some 17 years ago, a group of software developers met in Utah, and they really questioned methodology. They knew they had special knowledge into the dynamics and the difficulties, the challenges of software development. And so they came up with this very, very, as primitive as possible set of beliefs and principles. And they called the Agile Manifesto. What they said was, we are uncovering better ways of developing software and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, software over comprehensive documentation. Could you bring it up, please?
Oh, the Agile Manifesto.
Collaboration over contract negotiation. Responding to change over following a plan. And this is all written in English, left to right script. That is, while there is value on the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. Making a self-political statement, in my humble opinion, I'm sure they would never admit to it. I've actually met 2 of the signatories. And to me, that's like meeting the founding fathers. It's like meeting Benjamin Franklin. So, Alistair Coburn, delightful, very profoundly influential individual. How many of you know Alistair Coburn? He wrote the book on writing user stories. 20 years ago, by writing this book on user stories, on use cases. And that became to some degree the foundation of Agile or Scrum development, user stories. Statements. Attempt. And may I say attempt, because I feel that Agile, it's about a culture, it's about thinking for yourself. It's not about taking directions so much. It's about empowering individuals to think, to act, to take risks. And it's very, in my opinion, antithetical to corporate culture. when I asked, when Alistair Coburn came to the Agile Boston, not Agile New England, but Agile Boston different group, I asked him, I feel that there's a social message to this, movement. Yeah, he denied that completely. Agile people, they do not want to acknowledge that because they want to kowtow to the corporate culture, in my humble opinion. They don't want to divulge the non-traditional and somewhat, autonomous, I want to say, rebellious nature of people thinking for themselves and acting collectively. Because in my experience as a software developer, the communication needs to be two ways. And with traditional top-down management style, command and control, which is, waterfall, is arguably the antithesis, the converse of agile culture, really top-down. So, in my mind, my opinion, agile, there's no one methodology. If you think it is, probably on the wrong track. The culture, and that's the message I wanted to share.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much.
All right, so what is agility? No?
Jump through hoops.
All set? Everybody's got it now? So I want to take a big step back. Agile with a capital A. Agile, I think that Eric was referring to a lot, in different corporate environments or on different projects in terms of project management. Just about where the manifesto comes from, right? And so I'm Kelly Albrecht. I'm with Last Call Media. And over here then.
You run that for you?
It's not.
I mean, I can do the keyboard if that helps.
Oh wait a minute. Whew. All right. Coming some obstacles. So I'm with Last Call Media. Last Call Media is we're programmers, we're designers. We work with stakeholders and clients to figure out how to break down their idea into some sort of product or project that we build for them. Well, we named ourselves Last Call Media because we want to be the last call that you need to make. And to do that, you need to and adapt as their needs change, because everybody changes over time. And if you want to be there for the long haul, you need to have an awareness, a continued awareness of what the person that you're in a relationship with, what their needs are, and how their needs are changing. And you need to adapt to that if you want to and continue to do that. So that's how we work. We work in a way of seeking continued awareness so that we can detect changes, realize changes, accommodate changes, so that we can stick around, so that as reality changes, we can see how it's changed, and we need to work in a way that if changing direction becomes the right thing to do, we do it. Because why would you ever want to go in the wrong direction for longer than that? So, and by working that way, we produce websites, apps, designs, print collateral, whatever the project calls for. So, what is agility? I will say that agility change, okay? So imagine a superhero that is known for their agility, right? So they're in some fight with some bad guy, and they're having a tough time. They're almost winning, but then they're almost losing. And then out of nowhere, another bad guy comes in with a fist, flying fist, and this superhero who's known for their agility with superhuman agility, basically. They're so quick. They moved, or they knew it was coming. And that requires an awareness. What they're known for is their agility. Somehow, something with their superpower involves maybe they have an awareness of the future. They can see what's behind them. They have some sort of like presence alert. Or maybe they just have good hearing and they're just regular people, just like you and me. Right? And actually, I would go so far as to say that anybody who's, something I like to ask is, who has some experience, experience with agility? Hands if you've experienced agility, right? So yeah, so I think anybody who's had to change their plans for some reason has had some experience with agility. The most agile thing when you have to cancel your trip to the dentist. Everybody in that scenario, their flexibility, I would say, is somewhere on the scale of being agile, and that's adapting to change. That is recognizing where a plan needs to be adjusted and something else needs to be done. And everyone's in agreement, right? Down to the dentist. And the right thing to do in that moment, given that current reality, is to keep driving. The red light and hit your car. You have to be agile. You can dodge that accident, but then it's also your agility that realizes that, well, I can't keep going to the dentist. I need to do other things. And agility is good. Popular quote for agilists, reference at this point. Probably a little bit too small to read, but this is a Charles Darwin quote that says that it's not the most intellectual of the species that survives, nor the strongest. That is the one that is able to adapt and adjust best. And I would say that is a form of agility. Also like to say, we talked a little bit about this so far, that awareness, right? So if you don't have any of a changing reality, how can you respond and adapt to that change? So this little picture, that's a smiling little floating head with a lot of physical methods of awareness. There are lots of different ways to be awareness. We have
I was thinking the same thing.
mix it up. You can't use everything at your grab some of the hand fruit. There's gluten-free options downstairs. Yes, as a reminder to myself to mention that the gluten-free hand fruit. No, we have a lot of tools at our disposal for maintaining an awareness of our reality. So I think it's been said to be more than one time that the military is actually one of the most agile organizations on. If you think about it, if you try to plan what you're going to do, and that plan becomes useless. Some bomb goes off, something happens, and you just have to do the right thing, right? So if that's the case, it doesn't make sense to plan out as if you're going to be able to see the future. I mean, it is important to take some deliberation time, but you have to recognize that reality changes, and change is inevitable in most situations. For example, if you're putting together some Lego set and you have a few hours, you're going to put those pieces together. You don't really need to be agile. But if you have a big bin of Legos and you're going to try to do the plan, and you have, and this bin is from 3 different sets, and kids have trudged through it. Building that boat might take a little accommodation, a little agility on your part. So there are a lot of tools that we use to bring it to software development. You could use Scrum to do anything. project where there are complicated requirements, you could use Scrum, which is a framework for working together with people and working through a project, producing a project with potentially changing requirements. Scrum is agile with a few ways. I'm going to talk about 3. I'm going to break them down into 3 buckets. Scrum has ceremonies. Those are the things that get done that you meet up with the other people on your team and you do them. And another slide. It has values. That's a way of the other people on your team that brings a value to who you are and who the other team are and who you are together as a team. And Scrum operates by delivering its work in iterations, shippable increments of the product, of working software at each iteration. I'm going to talk a little bit about why that's agile. Ceremonies agile. So I think in all these things is that there are a lot of different ways to work that are considered agile. Okay, that for something to be considered agile, it has to have built into it moments of awareness, ways for you to gain awareness into what you're doing, potentially into those changes that are inevitably going to happen, and to give you a way to empower you, to give you permission within its framework to change and adapt to change. And the framework would all work together, moments of awareness of a changing reality, and a way to comfortably adapt to that. So how are ceremonies agile? Basically, every time we ask how is something agile, how does it bring you an awareness in what you're doing? Right? And then further to that, how does it adapt into those needed changes? So some of the ceremonies are sprint planning, the daily stand-up, perspectives, and sprint review. So sprint planning, so a sprint, do an iteration of your project, right? It's called a sprint. So you start at the beginning of the sprint. Most sprints are 2 weeks long. Of all the things that could be done, we're going to pick enough of them that we think can get done within this sprint time, part of the plan. And so you're going to pick them so that if you get them done, what you get done in 2 weeks is a version, an iteration of the big picture. So a popular way to think about this in terms of steps in iterations within minimum viable products as iterations, put together a mode of transportation. An iteration of that might be some roller skates. Another iteration of that might be maybe put some, maybe you make into a skateboard. And then another iteration to that, maybe you put some handlebars on it. Now it's a scooter. And another iteration of that might be now you get a seat on it. To a bike in increments, iterative. And so at the beginning of each one of those iterations, you have to plan out what you're going to do for that sprint. So there's sprint planning, and you come together and get an awareness of what needs to be done, maybe the previous sprint. What is it that this is your moment where you work with the product owner who's been working with the stakeholders to ask those questions about what does this really mean? What are we really trying to do? How is this going to work together? You're doing that so that you can understand what needs to be done enough so that you can commit to it, to doing it within the 2 week increments, or so you can forecast that you're going to probably be able to get it done in that time. The daily stand-up happens every single day. So this is a Scrum ceremony that says you should meet every day, make it really quick, as what they did the day before, what they want to do today, and getting that awareness every morning that somebody's stuck for a really serious reason. And the right thing to do at that moment, sprint. You don't know, so you need these daily moments of awareness to check in with something taking longer than they thought. Is something turning out to be actually impossible? And so maybe you need to notify the stakeholders that, hey, we discovered this thing. It's a really big deal. If you look at it, we'll all agree. And so it's better to find that out as soon as possible then at the end of the sprint, when it turns out like, hey, I know we met 2 weeks ago about doing this whole thing. Well, actually, back on Tuesday, it became impossible. We just kept going because we didn't have a way to bring that awareness to the project. Or worse, what happens in, I think, projects that would be understood as being done in a waterfall, which would be maybe you do as much work as you can until you get to some quality assurance thing 6 months down the road, and then that's where you discover all the problems that maybe you wish that you would have been able to find out about those things back at the beginning, rather than waste all your time going in the wrong direction. The sprint retrospective is something that the internal development team, each other together, what things should stay the same. So what was good about what we just did, they do that at the end of every sprint. What was good about the sprint? What should stay the same? What should change about the sprint? How we had the product owner made it so that we did a stand-up at the beginning and the end of the day, and then they kept changing what they wanted us to do. That should change. That was bad for the sprint. So this gives you these types of things, give you a chance to adjust course. So you're getting an awareness to how the sprint went and how each person on the team thought it could go better. So you're inspecting your process and you're adapting to it, and that's your agility. The sprint review is done with the stakeholders and the whole team to review the work that was done during the sprint. And this is bringing an awareness to the project, that project's going, how that sprint went. And really that, I've got another slide for how our iteration's agile, but that's really how they're agile, because we're at the end of an iteration, and that's where the stakeholders can see a working version of their vision. And that's when you can see, in a very tangible way, the idea coming to life. And you can hear things like, well, you did exactly what we wanted. It's working as described, but now that we see it working, big mistake. Or now that we see it working, we want to go direction. And you can see it in a way that you couldn't have seen it otherwise. So you need to get that awareness and have that option to change. They could also couple it up with some user testing. Maybe the users hate it. At least you didn't spend a year building this thing that the users were going to hate. You found out in the first or second or third iteration of the project that the users hate your idea. And that's the idea of failing fast, right? You don't want to fail after 6 months. You want to fail after 2 sprints or 3, or as soon as possible. So it's one of my favorite topics. I'm just checking the time because I've done this as a presentation in and of itself. Scrum has in it outlined, and I think a lot of people talk about these values in a lot of different ways, but I like to think of these values in terms of asking, how are these values agile? How do these values bring agility to the team? I think an understanding of these values, understanding these values in the right way and how they work together, agility, I think, is very valuable. So commitment, right? So commitment is something that you need to hold as a value on the Scrum team, on your Scrum team. And, so before I get into each one, you're having in a project or on a Scrum team is going to come down to a violation of one of these values. So if something's going off kilter on your project, if you think about it and you ask yourself, value do I think might be getting violated right now? It could be that somebody's committing to something, saying that they're going to get something done. And the term commitment is, but there's a bit of discussion over whether we should use the word commitment or not in general, because it's a little predictive. You know, how can you commit to doing something when the project could get hit by a bus or something? But within that, it could be that somebody is saying they understand, and they're saying that they're the ones that are going to try to do it and then it's just not happening. And so that would be a commitment violation, but it might also be the fact that it's not happening, but also what's not happening is they're not sharing their work. They're not sharing their struggles. So there may be an openness violation in there. And as you investigate this as a team, inspecting how you're doing, you may find out that actually, but they're also not able to focus on it. And it may be that there's a very overbearing product owner who's always interrupting the workflow and trying to get people to do other things other than they've committed to. So that would be a focus violation. And so you're getting to the root of the problem in this example I'm making up as I go. Well, if the product owner would contain themselves and stop interrupting people, they'd be able to focus and get done what they were meaning to do. And so in this example, the person should have the courage to say, hey, this product owner is breaking my focus, and I'm kind of struggling with this thing. To be open about that, right? So that's something that should happen. It's a framework for talking about these things. Yes.
So would you say that for a credible agile development operation, the problem, a root cause of the problem is going to trace back to one of these?
Yep. I would say that. And that if you threw a curveball at me, I would find a way to tie it into one of these. And then the last one that I didn't cover in that example is respect, right? And so in the example that I just made up, where there's a little bit of a shared responsibility, you got a product owner violating a focus value of a team. You've got the team, a team member who's violating the openness value, and then courage. They're not having the courage to be open about what's going on. Right? So how do you deal with this? Well, you deal with this by valuing respect. And I would define respect in the context of working collaboratively with other people is accepting that to respect someone is to accept that they're doing the best they can. Right? If you think about respect like that, it will change the way you interact with people. So if you have someone in your life that is just always late, well, don't say always because that's critical. Someone that is late quite often, and you want to confront them about this, but treat them with respect. They're doing the best they can. They're trying to get here. Maybe it's just, if we want to have a real conversation about this, it's really bad at time management. Like, that's just, they're just bad at that, right? And so, hey, you know you're doing the best you can. And then where you go from there is you say, what can I do to help you do better, right? So they're doing the best they can. They might not be doing the best that you want them to do, okay? So you need to accept that everybody's doing the best they can. Maybe they're not doing the best that you want them to do. So what can you do to help them do the best that you want them to do? Right? So you have somebody that's showing up late all the time, owner, some focus. Maybe they have a lot of anxiety. Maybe this is a person that needs help with their anxiety, right? So they're doing the best they can. This focus value. What can we do to help you as a product owner do a better job and not let's be real about what it is you're doing. So let's not look for blame or criticizing, but let's just be real about this, right? So for me, I struggled with being on time a lot. Everybody's working on things. I like that example because I have a lot of personal experience with it. So a lot of times someone will be late and while they're coming somewhere being late, the excuse, that there was a little bit of traffic. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is. But if you try to work on that and say, well, what can we do to help you not to help you do a better job. Should we call you? Should we do a wake-up call? Can we buy you another alarm clock? And this is a way to work on these things in a respectful manner. And it doesn't the direction where maybe the best that they can do is just not good enough. And then you can deal with that respectfully. You're doing the best you can, not working out. Okay? And so that is, I believe, why respect is a value. So how does that make things agile? It's a way of working together. It's a way of having an awareness into what's going on in the other person. When you are working with another person and they're struggling with something, and you have the mindset of they're doing the best they can, what you're looking for is an awareness into what's going on in their lives. The lazy thing to do is that what's happening to me? This person is showing up late, they're making me late, they're just bad. They're screwing around, it's just messed up. That's disrespectful. Anybody have any questions about anything?
Can you define Scrum? Because I keep hearing that word. I'm not sure. Is it software or framework or what?
Sometimes I see it all capitalized. It doesn't say anything, right?
No, yeah. Well, the metaphor is for the Scrum of rugby. So really,
How to plan the
very
next
collaborative.
move.
The emphasis on collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Scrum is like a whole framework of Agile and Scrum are like two different methods of
Getting into Scrum, we talked all about what agility is,
Yeah.
and we're talking about basically how Scrum is agile. Using Scrum as an example, there's also
It's a flavor.
yes,
It's a flavor of agility.
it's a way. It's a group of ceremonies and values and different ways you can go about accomplishing a project or working together with other people in a way that's agile. And what we're doing is we're picking apart. How is it lowercase a agile with the same agility that a superhero?
some Kanban.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you could mention the other flavors of Agile.
We've got Kanban, XP Agile. You got any others? You got a list?
Mob programming. So
Mob programming. Yeah.
programming is typically for, has been ongoing for the last 20 years where two people share pair programming and those sharing mind space, but being focused on the problem at the same time. And out of that has grown a mob program where you have 5 people, like 2 minutes at a time. And I've done this, it's wonderful, it's amazing. And people have actually done mob programming in Agile for non-software development things. Advertising agency found by getting the right people in the room at the right time, that they were able to cut things down from like a 5-week lead time to like 90 minutes. So one thing I want to say about agility is what he mentioned. One of the big things in my mind is failing faster, minimal viable product, and then sorry, just flew away.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, Kanban. Yeah, Kanban. And Deming was an American who taught the Japanese how to optimize their productivity. Might have preceded Deming, where they use semaphores on the assembly line just in time. So they have just in time delivery instead of having inventory of parts like an American system. You have inventory behind you. But everything in the Japanese Kanban model, and similarly, Agile Kanban is about eliminating the work in progress.
Yeah. And then also with the Kanban, where the Kanban, there are boards of cards, and each card is something that you're doing. Kanban tends to be kind of almost like the status of that card. So you're working on it, they're making the idea phase, and then there's different versions of it in progress. And the card moves. There's Trello is a version of this, if anybody's played around with Trello. But the idea comes from on the production line. Or cars used to get produced where if there was a defect in one of the welds or something inside along the assembly line, that car, that defect would happen, and then the whole car would get built all the way up to the end, and they would roll it into a lot where all the defect cars were, with the thinking that one day we're going to send someone out there who's going to tear apart all these cars and fix that well. And so the change was that if that defect got noted, it turned into a card.
So the point that I like to add, if I may, is that what they discovered, Deming and especially, was the cost of remediation grew exponentially the longer it took them to discover the failure. So the Japanese, they focused in on this and one famous example is that they negotiated an American company where they were allotted like 5 defects per 1,000 parts. Because again, the American way of the regular input stream, but about eliminating defects. So they went to sign, when they delivered, the executives from the Japanese company, they delivered the parts in a bin, and then they brought a little box with a bow on it. What's that? What's in that? That's where your defects are. Guaranteed was statistical methodology that there were no defects, zero defects in the production run that they delivered.
Yeah, so gaining an awareness into the defects as they're happening. And get in there, fix that weld, and then it could proceed, the rest of the parts could get done. Going out in that parking lot of defects and turning these cars apart and fixing it. It was just a waste. And so that's where Kanban comes from. You've got the cards moving across the board, you've got this awareness into a thing that's physically getting done. And you have that awareness into it as it's happening. And Scrum is another one of those, right? Where you've got all these ways to gain awareness into defects as they're happening. Already jumped ahead to this one. Iterations are agile because they aim to provide an optimized awareness into a larger effort. And awareness enables agility. So really, what I mean by an optimized awareness is to compare this to Kanban. With Kanban, there aren't sprints necessarily. There aren't just working on stuff as it makes sense to do, and you're just moving it to done. Each card. With Scrum, you are choosing to work on something with a specific goal over a small amount of time. So this would be good. This is good for product development, where you can take some time and get something working, and then review that. So you're optimizing that thing, getting it to a review state. 10 working days or 9 working days of it not in the greatest review state. And then in that last day, you polish it up and get it ready, or you get it ready across all the days. But really, the point is that you get it to a reviewable state, so that it's not half done, so that it's not still broken, because it might be broken most of the time. You get it working, so that who's ever reviewing it can see it working. Decision, and so that's optimizing that awareness. They're getting a good awareness of this thing. If you showed it to them while it was broken, they might say, "Oh, we're canceling this." Absolutely, this thing is never going to work. All right, so that takes some planning, right? Thinking about optimizing awareness. I'd also like to throw a wrench in gears of what we've been talking about so far. So along the lines of optimizing and awareness, you've got this thing that I like to think about. Second chance to make a first impression, right? So think about this like from the TV commercials that we've all grown up with, right? Someone in the commercial is getting ready for a date. I think it's coming back to me now. I'm thinking it was like a Head and Shoulders commercial, right? And you go out on your date, and you've got some flakes of dandruff, and you meet your date, and they see this blemish, this disgusting blemish on your shoulder, this dandruff. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So you should have thought ahead. You should have bought Head and Shoulders. You should have shampooed with it. You should have made sure that there were no flakes, that everything was good, everything was perfect, because now this person is never going to call you again because dandruff grosses them out. And I think that this worked excellent in commercials because it strikes at something that we all feel. We all feel this need to plan, to design, to get something to some sort of optimized state, have some embarrassing moment, right? When you're working on something, you're getting it to some state, you're going to release it at some point to someone, and it's going to affect them. And it's going to affect them in a in a way that's never going to, you're never going to get a second chance at it. That first time that they're affected by something, they're reading it. You're going to have to get a second chance. And so, anybody, why this would be a wrench in the gears of what we're talking about with iterations?
Why that would be?
Huh?
Why that would be a wrench?
Yeah.
Because the whole concept of iterations and agility is if you build something low scale and low tech that represents the idea, then early on you can find out if you need to modify that before spending a lot of investment and time and making them.
Right. So me with dandruff on my shoulder, of my perfect hair that I'm working up for. I've just, lost a potential partner or a potential friend or whatever the date was going to be about. So I have another talk that I do that's about agile and design, because we're a design shop also. We're a design shop and a programming shop, and it's every project I get another opportunity to try to make things less tense. But there's this big tension between the design team and the agile development team, because the designers instinctively understand this, that you never get a second chance. They're designing some beautiful thing, some work of art, right? Is going to affect the viewers in a certain way. They're committing, and for that beauty to stand a chance of being viewed as beautiful, you need to spend some time with it. You need to work on a planet. And then the tension is that the development team is like, well, just give me something that's good enough that I can build, because we want to get a version of this out so that we know whether or not it's a mistake. Like, I don't care what it looks like. Just put buttons on it. And then the designer is like, well, just buttons on it, nobody's going to press them because they don't look right. They're different color than the footer, they're rounded, the footer's squared off. There's inconsistencies all throughout, and it's like, and the agile team is like, we just need buttons to know if people want buttons at all. We don't need to know if people want beautiful buttons. So there's always this tension.
Is it also fair to say that that applies to a particular client? That, clients are humans too. They can change their mind. And if you have a process like this, it allows them to sort of have an agency reflect back. Aha, this is your idea. These are your thoughts. And sometimes they're challenged with their own thinking.
Yep.
And can lead an agency potentially to a lot of hours where a simple conversation can be, oh, when you said green, you really meant blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so as an agile coach in these situations, I'm always trying to carefully rip designs away from the designers so that I can find out the wrong direction. And it's challenging to know exactly, because you might be making a mistake. You might pull something away from them that quite achieving that visual, the visual goals that you have, and you show it to the client, and they think they hate it because it affected them poorly. But really, you'll never know at that point if you just let the designer spend the rest of the day on it. One little squiggly line that pulled the whole thing together, and they would have loved it. But now it's in the trash. So it definitely depends on the client.
And at the end of the day, to get back to your point about corporations, is don't make hamburgers. This is a creative endeavor. Creativity is something that you can easily, with a waterfall model, you can squash it, you can kill it. You're bringing value to any client, and these types of systems protect that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. One of the things that I realized as trying to merge agile thinking in with or bring it to a design process is that design has already done this, but they do it. It feels like it's in kind of a different direction. Where with the design project, it gets 2 rounds of revision. That's almost like it's 2 sprints, right? So we're going to work a design to a point where we want your feedback, a revision. And we're going to do another sprint back. So it's already part of the design process and a little bit there. So.
I'd like to make one point, and actually, follow the question if I may. Extraordinarily difficult. Every project is unique. You know, when they built the first suspension bridge, it was quite a feat. But, you know, making bridges after that became a lot more. So a lot of these management people that don't know the idiosyncrasies and the challenges of software development dictate, you know, dates. You know, it's a typical thing. The marketing people want it July 1st. They have no contact. They commit to the customer on your report. Software development is not like that. And that's, I think, to some degree, the genesis of Agile is pushing back. Because, you know, you're ready July 1st. You know, okay, we can deliver. You know, the classic pushback is, you know, I can do it good, I can do it fast, and I can do it cheap. And not many people, not many of these management people understand that, these bean counters. The other thing I want to say is, could you talk a little bit about co-location? Because I feel like one thing that Agile companies rarely do right is co-location. It's just fundamentally important. Oh yeah, we do Agile, our development team's in India.
Well, right, co-location, to tie it back into how the context in which I'm putting the question of what is agility, co-location, that is a big challenge to awareness. It's things that are incredibly easy when you're all in the same room. You suddenly are all handicapped in one way or another. It's extra effort to build those. I don't think, I mean, we, at times, last call is 100% remote. Everybody's allowed to work from home if they want. Most of the team can make it in the office in Northampton, and they often do. But on a snow day, we'll be doing a daily stand-up, or we'll have a meeting, and there will be, you know, the whole row of virtual attendance to the virtual meeting are all there. But it, you know, it takes a little bit of an effort, at least at first, to develop ways of communicating frequently and having awareness into everything.
So real agility, in my humble opinion, is in the room face to face, located with the development team. That's what real agility is. You know, we have real communication. It's not in software projects like the customer, they don't even want to be involved. But do, you know, read my mind. What happens is they don't fail fast enough, and then you spend 18 months and you've lived on product. You've been billions of dollars wasted that way. If you're agile, I mean, yes, it's true, you do things upside, but if you're developing located in India, I'm sorry, that's
it's a handicap. There's no way. There's no doubt about it. There's nothing that is equal to in-person communication.
this mob programming. When you got 5 people sharing a keyboard, man, and draw a little picture. Mob programming. You know, when any individual, we have our attention, we have our brain working this way, we got time working this way, and you know, this morning I got energy. Oh, you know, I get hungry. Oh, I'll have something to eat. You know, sugar spike. You know, my ability goes like this. So I'm really peak productivity. You know, what's like this? You get 5 people in a room and all their cycles. You take the best. What you're getting is the best of everyone at any one time, and that's what agility is about. It's collective action. People getting their brains together in the same room.
We've got 2 minutes left, and the next one on here for agility is down in room 321. Plans and and I'd like to announce the today from 3 to 4.
It's not on the schedule.
It's in room 329. It's replacing the inspect adapt release session. So Eric Houston is going to lead us through some fun agile games, some games about agility. And so I've got a few more slides about planning and some of the challenges of that. But since we're basically out of time and the next session is all about it, I think I'll just cut it short and say thank you. Awareness enables agility.
So what's the secret, Kelly?
Oh, it's this one.
Yeah.
And it should be all. Oh, I can help you with this.
Yeah, I'll need some pointers on that.
Yep.
Struggling while I'm trying to talk. I'm not as polished as you, so I tend to get a little nervous and like to see notes and all that. I try to have something.
Yep. So the first thing you're gonna do is
Verification.
How do you do?
Yep. So now everything that I don't want people to see. So do I drag that over here?
Yeah. Yep. Down. Yep. There you go. You got it. Looks like the other one.
I also have to talk to some of these. I mean, I can work it out.
What's that down arrow represent?
It is a dismissive term.
I don't know what, yeah, that's,
I didn't be writing that.
that's, yeah.
Oh, you want to drag this to the other screen. You want this to be on this. Yep.
Yes. I'm ready
It's also, yeah, this is actually.
It's not on the schedule.
I actually think,
The schedule.
yes, I'm gonna call him on it.
And then is your number? What if
I'm gonna call you. I just
behind?
I appreciate it.
I think there are some people, I just want you to say, I want to say that there are some organizations which are interested in working as it, are interested in working. Because they're part of our team.
It's working.
You know, I'm here to learn. So.
I just feel like we should be honest.
I really appreciate that. This is how we learn. This is the agile. I like this. This is great.